The victim was walking at the intersection of La Costa Avenue and El Camino Real in the city of Carlsbad, when all of a sudden, the defendant stabbed him senselessly. The victim hobbled over across the street to the nearest business, which was a Starbucks, and he yelled for help and he collapsed on the ground.
A quiet, relaxing atmosphere, and I suddenly heard someone yelling.
I'm stabbed, and it kind of makes you think, well, was the guy kidding? So I stood up and walked toward the window, and I looked down, and there was blood all over the floor.
Mr. Melendez was one of the patrons who was there with a friend, and as soon as he saw the victim, he ran over to assist.
Got down and started putting pressure on the wound. There was another customer in the store at the time, and he came also, and he asked the employees at the Starbucks to bring towels.
First thing when you see somebody in my type of training is that you have to stop the bleeding.
The young man came coming in and out. He seemed like he was going to pass out. I kept engaging him in conversation to make sure that he didn't go to sleep or pass out.
So I got the towels and folded them in about a 5x5 square and put them on the wound and put my hand on the wound.
Later I knew that that person, he was also in the military, and he was actually one of these individuals that trained military personnel on first aid.
Officer Megan Techia was the first officer on scene, and when she arrived, she saw a very chaotic scene.
You gotta settle down a little bit. You move more, it bleeds more. Settle down. It's okay, breathe. Okay, breathe through your mouth. Breathe through your mouth. Come on.
Citizens are holding pressure on it right now.
There was a male that walked up to the group, and initially everyone thought that he was another spectator, but this individual, who was the defendant, from his back pulled out a crossbow, and he aimed it directly at the victim.
So at that point, I grabbed the crossbow with one of my hands, and the gun went off.
I got a heavy pressure bandage on you.
The arrow narrowly missed the victim and hit the side of the Starbucks.
Being a Marine for so many years, we learned that we need to take action quickly.
I see him, and he's a pretty big guy, and all of a sudden he grabbed a hold of the police officer.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
Now, Officer Techia attempted to grab hold of the defendant, but he violently resisted. And Mr. Lopez, seeing Officer Techia struggle, got up and assisted in tackling the defendant to the ground.
So what I did is I kicked him in the knee to push his knee down. And at that point where I kicked him, he rolled.
Get on the ground!
Get on the ground!
Hands behind your back! Did she tell you, get on the ground?
You got him handcuffed? She goes, yeah, I got him now.
Here, I got this one.
45, 1 minute out.
71 minutes.
Mr. Lopez and Mr. Melendez were nominated by Carlsbad Police Department, and I believe that is very significant. It's very telling because members of our community, our peers, believe that these two men were courageous citizens.
I just want to thank City of Carlsbad, Chief of Police, and the officers, men and women there, the first responders, and the DA's office of the people of San Diego.
I'm very humble for being nominated for this, but at the same time, I believe this is something that anybody should do without thinking about the results of what is actually happening. It's the right thing to do.
Their behavior, their conduct struck a chord in those who nominated them. And I wholeheartedly believe that Mr. Lopez and Mr. Melendez, they are deserving of this recognition.